Well, hello and welcome to season three's Dare to Differentiate live show. Whether you're tuning in live or watching the replay, I am so delighted that you're here. If you're here with me currently, type in a hello, tell me where you're tuning in from so that I know that there's an audience here as well. It's been 3 months since I ran my last live show, so I'm super excited to be back to kick off season three to chat with you guys today. So, the purpose of the show is to really help you to own your voice, value, and visibility to help you advance your career. So, if you're here, type in hello, let me know where you're tuning in from as well. So, I'm your host, Diana YK Chan, the founder of My Markability, where I help you stand out, get hired, and earn more. As an executive career coach, I work with seasoned professionals, leaders, and executives to stand out, get hired, and earn more. I work with people in career transition, trying to figure out what's next, how to differentiate their unique value, master the messages, and communicate with confidence. All right, so I'm so delighted to be back. Let me see who's here. If you're new, type in new as well. I want to welcome you. If you've been watching my shows in the past, like earlier this year, let me know and type in big fan as well. So I'm just going to say a quick hello before I dive into the show here. What do we have here? We have Kayla from Toronto, Daniela from Toronto as well. Amazing. Welcome. Candace, welcome back as well. Great to see you again. Monica from Tobico. Awesome. Awesome. Great to see you here. Shisha from Toronto. Amazing. All right. So a lot of folks from Toronto here today. Awesome. I mean, I've been off from running my shows because of the summer. Wanted to take it easy to enjoy some time with my family as well. So I'm curious to hear from you. Just a little quick catch up here. How was your summer? Type in some emojis if you want, or tell me how the summer was. If I had to sum up my summer, it was about we did some moving. We moved out because we're doing some renovations currently. We need to move back to our home in the next month. We tried out camping for the first time and I realized it's not really for me, but my kids loved it there. We did a lot of beach days, splash pad with my kids. My kids are about 4 and 6 now, and we did some swimming as well. So a lot of outdoor times this summer. So I'm a little tan there, but I'm really excited to be back with you guys. So today, what we're going to do today, really, today's show is I really want to answer questions. I want to take this opportunity to answer anything related to career planning, job search, personal branding, LinkedIn, networking, interview, salary negotiation. Feel free to ask me some questions there. I already have a list of questions I gather from some people who already submitted to me, so I'll be answering those. I'm also going to be sharing some job search success stories from my past clients from during the pandemic during this year here. I'll share some job search habits and job search strategies. So that's the agenda for today. I want to keep it lighter just because I really want to connect with you guys. It's been like, 3 months that I haven't ran my own live show. So big part of it is I just want to really reconnect and chat with you guys as well. So I see some of you here said big fan. Thank you. Let's see here. Who else? Lisa, I'm new, but big fan. Thank you so much. Great to see many of you. We Stephanie from Brooklyn. From England as well. Summer was fast. Wish it was slower. I agree. It just went by so fast. I noticed this year, even with my own clients and a lot of people I talk to, a lot of people really need to take the break because, with COVID, I think people are just exhausted, right? You probably have heard in the news that a lot of people quit their jobs this summer. And people just were, burnt out, right? It's been in the news in the US and Canada here. So that's been like an all-time high. So I really believe right now with the September, the back to school, things are always going to, get back into gear with, after the summer mode where there's more hiring happening. It's like a new season, new year there. Okay. So even for me, I'm curious, any of you who have kids with back to school this week, how has that been? My kids started back to school on Tuesday here. The older one's in grade 1 at a new school, and the younger one is in JK at a Casa Montessori. And it's been like night and day difference. The older one is super excited to go in to meet his friends, go to new school. And the younger one is still resistant to go to school, feeling scared. Today he had a major meltdown as well. So that impacted me a little bit. But, it's going to be a transition. My point here is that it's going to take time with transitions here. Okay. All right. So I see more of you tuning in. Welcome, welcome. Oh, Huma, welcome back. Great seeing you again. It's been a while here. Awesome, awesome. So what I'm going to do first, a few things. I want to do some housekeeping here. If you're not following me yet, make sure you follow me on either LinkedIn, YouTube, or Instagram, or on Facebook as well. On my Instagram, I usually share more personal updates, but on my LinkedIn, YouTube, I share more advice related to career and job search. And if you're looking for the replay, you'll find the replay on my YouTube or LinkedIn there. Okay. All right. So this is today's agenda. We're going to talk about job search stories, habits, and strategies. So what I'm going to do first, while I wait for some questions to come in, I'm going to start talking about some stories, and I'll start going to the habits as well. And feel free to ask me anything. Okay. I'm going to keep it light for today's show there. All right. So let me share with you some job search success stories. There's been a lot this year. There's been a lot happening. What's been really interesting, I have to say, is even though, yes, it's been a really tough time during COVID, but I've also seen some major big pivots in a lot of my clients, whether it's changing industries, changing professions, getting a next level role or brand new role or a salary increase. So I want to share some of those stories to share some challenges that they faced and some of the key lessons as well, and hope to inspire you, and also share some of the things that I've noticed that what really works well for people there. Okay. All right, so I'm going to share with you the first success story that I'm really proud of. Is one of my client who was in nonprofit for over a decade, working in STEM education there. And when she approached me, she really wanted to make the pivot to leave not-for-profit to go into tech. And one of her dream company was Amazon. So we worked together this year, and she landed an amazing role, a brand new role at Amazon as a technical training program manager at Amazon. And she doubled her income, which is incredible. But I have to tell you, it was not easy, right? Pivoting from nonprofit to tech is a very different industry, right? So we had to really get clear on her unique value proposition, her brand, what she stands for as well. We had to really work on polishing that. She even interviewed with companies like Shopify as well, in the space of like training, STEM education type roles. So when you're looking to make a pivot to either a different industry, but also like a top company, you have to know who you are. Why do you want to make this change? First of all, like, why are you looking to make this pivot? What's really important to you? What do you bring to the table? But also, they're also assessing, like, when you're changing in a different industry and different work environment, in terms of your fit of working in a new culture or a very fast-paced culture, right? A very fast-paced work environment. Are you able to adapt and thrive as well? So those are things that you want to be able to demonstrate throughout the process here. And I have to tell you, this client, actually received a lot of rejections before she got this. So one of the key messages I want to share with you all is, rejection is redirection, right? Even though she did actually get rejected by Amazon multiple times before she landed this role, she did not give up. She constantly raised her bar by fine-tuning her messages, getting more clear, more crisp, more confidence. That was the key to success. So it was not just like all of a sudden it happened. It was multiple journeys, multiple months that we worked together to elevate to that next level there. Okay, so that's the first story there that I wanted to share with you. And then another story that I want to share, another recent one, was my executive client who is in management and consulting in data analytics. He came to Canada about 2 years ago. He was already at the director level in consulting at a very top company out there, but he had to take a step down in his career when he moved to Canada, and he really wanted to take his career back to the next level, hence why he hired me to help them. And so recently he landed a partner level role in consulting in advanced analytics, and making over 6 figures more. Crazy in terms of salary increase. But one of the things that I was really proud of, one of the challenge he faced was that he felt he didn't have a strong network in this new country. So that's something we really had to work on, is, how to overcome the fears of networking. But even before that, is we had to think about his brand, of what really differentiated him in his space, what makes him the go-to expert, and also in terms of not just this space in analytics, but also in terms of the industries or clients that he served. What was his niche there? So we got really clear on that, and we really worked on helping put together some tangible accomplishments and results that sounded interesting and impressive as well. So really nailing that. So at the end, he was able to really overhaul his resume, LinkedIn profile, elevator pitch. All these messaging was really clear that made him stood out. And eventually he landed an opportunity through networking there. Okay, so I hope this inspires you. I'm curious to hear from you guys what questions you have. Feel free to type it in. Yes, rejection is redirection. Amazing. Yes, thank you for pointing that out. Yes. Oh, we have someone from Philippines. CJ, rainy season here in Manila. Oh, wow. Okay, welcome. Okay, so let's see here. I'm going to answer one of the questions that was submitted to me earlier. Let me see here. So one of the questions that I got here was how to find a job that will be better for my health. And the context was that this person worked crazy hours doing her boss's job. I got really sick and had to go for surgery. And so the question is, once I recover from surgery, how to find a job that will be better for my health? And that's such a great question. I feel like, with COVID, it really pushed us to reevaluate what's really important to us, right? I think, first of all, before finding a job, I think we really need to take a step back and evaluate in terms of the priorities and what's really important to you. The first step is getting clear on what are your non-negotiables, right? What are the must-have in your next role there? Is it the fact you want more flexibility, a better boss, a better work environment? What is that? Write those down, okay? Beyond just writing up the job description, you want to talk about these things that are really important to you. Write that down, right? I always talk about having this assessment criteria because if you don't have assessment criteria, you have nothing to measure against in terms of evaluating next opportunities. So the first step is getting clear on what do I like, what don't I like, what's really important to me, and then write that down. And that becomes like your scorecard, your evaluation card when you evaluate your next opportunity there. Okay. And then from there, what you can do is as you conduct informational interviews, I want you to turn these things that are important to you into a question. Like, for example, in terms of the environment or culture or workload, ask that as a question when you're conducting these informational interviews. So it will give you a better idea or sense of what it's really like there. So those are the steps I would take first initially before you get into the job search phase there, is that having that understanding of who you are, what you want, and what's important to you. Okay. And then once you have that, that's really then you want to be proactive in looking for those opportunities. And perhaps this is where you want to do research of reading, whether it's Glassdoor reviews or looking at the best companies to work for list to help you identify these companies that you want to target. It is so important to have a list of companies you want to go after. Even if you don't know, start with companies that you're curious about so that you can start doing some research. And as you research further, you're going to come up with other companies as well. Okay, so that's the important thing, especially if you're looking for something that's either better for your health or having better work-life balance. What does that really look like? What are those boundaries that you need to set there? Okay, so I'm curious to hear from you guys who are here. What are you looking for in your next ideal opportunity? Like, what's important to you? Not just in terms of job titles here, but what are some things that's really important to you that are like your non-negotiables? Type it in and share with me. I would love to hear that from you as well there. Okay. All right. Candace has a question here, is that things are changing rapidly. Are you still seeing virtual interviews or are they moving to in-person? That's a great question. From what I've seen so far, the clients been going through interviews, it's still virtual interviews. I haven't really seen that many in-person interviews. I think it will happen later on or towards, like right now, I had a client who's in that phase of closing, getting the offer, and for a senior level position that they are talking about having an in-person meeting, but haven't scheduled yet. Things are still virtual right now. I mean, to be honest, right now, cases have still been rising, like COVID cases have been rising still. So there is still, I think people are still a bit cautious right now in terms of moving to in-person meetings there. Okay. And so what does this mean? In terms of virtual interviews, I've been talking a lot about this with virtual interviews, is that you do want to get comfortable in terms of being on camera. You want to have a great setup. So a few tips here. If you look at my setup right now, I actually have three lights actually. I have a big, those photography camera lights. I have a ring light and I have like the room light here. So that you want to make sure it's bright. You want to have a great background as well that looks clear or professional as well, organized there. A great camera. And then when you're talking is you want to make sure you're also speaking to the camera there so that people can see your eye contact there. Okay, so those are some tips there. All right, so let me see. What's another question? There was another question that was submitted here is, what resume formats perform better? So the context was this person has a resume with resume bullet type of format resume, but looking to move it to more paragraph style resume. So just to give you some context for those who are new to my work, like I've seen over at least 20,000 resumes as a former recruiter. I used to recruit for Google and a top MBA school and also worked in agency recruiting. So I've seen tons of resumes from entry level all the way to C level there. One thing I want to keep in mind is when you think about it, when someone gets a lot of resumes, really that first impression of formatting does matter, right? And a lot of times it's really skimming through information versus reading it. So when you think about this, you do want to make it easy for people to read. So when you do this test, so that if you write it in a more paragraph format, meaning there's no bullet points, like a long 5 to 7 lines of paragraph, it's very hard to read through or skim through really quickly. So it's much better that you have a format that's really more like resume, bullet point type of format. What I usually do is recommend is that depending on how long you've been in the role, like for those who are more seasoned experience, is to have a short paragraph, 3 to 4 lines to describe the scope of your role, the mandate, the overall. So that's more the responsibilities. And then you save the bullets for your what I call the impact statements, right? Your accomplishment statements, result statements that really showcase what differentiates you there. So that's a great blend that it's not all just essay or paragraph format, but it's a blend that gives a context of the role, the size and scope, and then you give what you've accomplished and achieved there. Okay. We can talk a lot about resumes here, but I think that from my experience, like having seen this, is that people ask, is chronological resume better or functional? There, I would say most, and there's been research shown, is that a lot of times recruiters prefer more the chronological style type of resume, which means showing your experience versus just breaking down into skills. What's been more popular these days is more the hybrid resume. So meaning that you have the top a bit of the summary of your personal summary of qualifications or your personal branding statement, I call it. And then you have a summary of your core skills or competencies. And then you move into the experience section. So just leaving that top quarter to top 1/3 of the page for that, and you move it into the experience. It is so important, in my opinion, like having looked at a lot of resumes, that your latest role should be on the first page. If you're using the entire first page of just having these qualitative information about you, it's really hard for someone to get a quick glance of your most latest experience there. Okay. All right. So let me see what other questions are coming in here. All right. Okay. All right. I see here what's important. Work-life balance. Yeah, that's an important one. That's something I've been hearing a lot this past year. Work-life balance, especially like working from home with other family members at home as well. Having that balance in key. There's actually been studies shown that since moving to a virtual world, people have actually been working longer hours because there's not really that clean cut of work and personal, and people have actually been working more hours. And I think this is what's causing a lot of the burnt out and stress as well, and why people have been leaving there. Yeah. What else here? Let's see. Professional development. Yeah, that's another big one that ties into growth and learning and development as well. And this ties into, you can also ask about, how have they been providing even like virtual professional development training and learning for new people, for new employees who come on board. Some of these questions are good to ask an employer there. What else here? Okay. All right. We have a question here from the audience. Would it be okay to contact a hiring manager when you're already talking to a recruiter? I don't want to upset anyone, but also want to be proactive. That's a good question. I'm not sure who this is from LinkedIn that's asking. That's such a great question to contact. And so I would say it depends. It really depends. I think there's no black and white here. It really depends there. So I think it depends on whether you're already deep into the interview process or not, or is it at the very beginning, meaning that you're just in the beginning, that you're still trying to get the hiring manager's attention and trying to still win them over. It's a good to reach out to them to say like, hey, I'm really interested in the opportunity and I just started talking to them. But if you're already deep into the process and you're being scheduled for, let's say, an interview for the hiring manager, then it probably may not be a good idea to schedule like an informal chat with them because you're already being considered for the opportunity. At the end of the day, I think it doesn't hurt to reach out to say hello, right? To let them know so that you're on the radar as well. It's showcasing that you're being proactive. If they may tell you, sometimes hiring managers are pretty good at this, is that I see that you're in their hiring process already. It's best that, that you follow this process and that we don't meet. Some people are pretty good with that. So you just have to, pay attention to the clues and what they say yes and what they say no to there. Okay. Good question there. All right. All right. All right. Oh, another one. Better boss. Yeah, that's a good one. I hear that a lot. A lot of times people leave jobs because it's a toxic environment because of that bad boss. And I've been dealing with that with a lot of my clients as well. And it's not easy, but these are the questions you want to ask the future employer as well, or ask the people that they work with as well. And this is something that you can also handle and deal with as well. Okay. Good. All right. Keep the questions coming. I'm going to continue to answer a few other questions that came in as well. So another question that came in was how to prepare for personality tests or online assessment during the interview stage. That's a great question. I have to say, I've actually noticed more online assessments since COVID. I think it's got to do with the fact that there are more virtual interviews and employers are also looking to be, I guess, more, I don't know if it's cost effective is the right way, but I guess to try to better predict future behavior and performance by doing these personality tests as well. I've definitely noticed an increase in the past year. So, and to be honest, it is actually hard to prepare. And there's not much you can prepare. But what I would suggest you can do is to at least find out and understand what type of assessment it is or what type of personality test it is, and do a search on Google to understand what this assessment is about. Is it to understand certain personality traits, or how you make decisions, or behaviors, or communication? Do a little research, because if you type in the name of the test, you can actually find out more by just visiting their website to understand that. I don't really believe you can really game the test system there. I think the best advice I can give is for those who go through this is to don't second guess yourself, meaning you want to be consistent with your answer. A lot of times these tests would have similar questions that I ask differently to see if you're being consistent. So I think the most important thing as part of it is it's being consistent with the way you would answer versus trying to second guess yourself there. Okay. And I think the other thing, like if I think about interview prep or how you ace an interview, right? A big part is also understanding the role's hiring requirement. So let's just say that you're going for a sales role. And I see a lot of sales roles have personality tests. And the sales role require you to be a relationship builder or really getting new businesses, right? They're really looking for someone who is probably like more like competitive, who's not shy from, doing cold outreaches. And some of those questions could probably reveal whether you're someone who is eager or willing to take on like new risks versus waiting for someone to give you orders there. So part of it is that you can try to really assess like, hey, what's important about this role? What does it take to be successful? What are those qualities and characteristics I could be looking for? And that usually will give you some clues of what's important. And that will help you understand, okay, well, if I want to show a match, what are some things that could be useful to highlight there? Okay. All right. So let me see in the chat what else is coming in. Okay. Okay. What's this question here? So question here is currently a youth support specialist. How can I position myself to get an international job like the UNICEF child protection? Okay, that is a great question, Mohammed. It's hard for me to give specific advice here, but I think about my clients who want to get an international job. I think a big part is doing your research, right? It is really understanding the hiring requirements at the day and what it takes to get something international. I have worked with clients who work at the UN out there, and a lot of times I do see in terms of whether it's through internal moves or through networking there, and it's to really understand. A lot of times, sometimes it's really understanding what roles may be coming up as well as networking to understand what are some new roles that could be opening up there to position yourself for success. I think in your case, Mohammed, here because you work in the youth support space and you're looking to move into something child protection, there's definitely a lot of transferable skills. So you want to highlight one, your passion for children, for youth. You want to highlight your skill sets as well. That is highly transferable as well. And then you want to also showcase like, hey, why in terms of your passion for why you want to get an international role and work for the UNICEF there. Okay, so I hope that is helpful. Okay, what other questions that are coming in here? Let me see. I'm going to see what other questions I had before as well. Okay. Oh, there was this question. I get this a lot, actually. How to reinvent yourself after 55. I mean, you can reinvent yourself at any stage in your career. This person submitted how to reinvent yourself after 55, after a certain stage in your career. So I think a big part of this is really knowing yourself. I know I talk about this a lot. Soul searching before job searching, right? This is really understanding your strengths, your skills, your desires, your interests, your dreams. Doing all that analysis could take a while, to be honest, right? So I think that's really the first part there is understanding that, like understanding your wants of what you really want there. And then from there, is if you're looking for a full-time job, is we really need to understand the market needs, right? Really understanding right now in terms of the job search trends, the market need of what's really happening. So if we use, right now, if I look at, since like COVID and pandemic here, there's definitely been an increased rise of jobs related to technology or like e-commerce, analytics. Those type of opportunities have been popping up a lot more because of the demand. So we really need to understand the market need and understand, hey, is this something I am really interested? If not, what are the other possibilities there that I can go after? If it is, what can I do to increase my marketability? Is it the fact of taking more, let's say, training or courses? What is it? It's really trying to figure that out first, and we need to understand. And then from there, then we can think about marketing, how to best position ourselves for success. Okay. I know we can talk a lot more about this because it's not easy. One thing I know is I'm working with a lot of clients. Like one of them, my recent one was an executive, president and CEO of an advertising firm, 30 plus years of experience, very successful. And she was trying to figure out what to do next. And we did a lot of soul searching work, through coaching together, asking like, what do you really want and all that. And she was not sure at first. And then after a few months, she came back to me and said, Diana, I want to become a coach. I want to become a leadership coach in helping develop the future like the next generation of leaders. And so from there, she basically signed up for coaching training, 6 months of intensive coaching training, like over 100 hours of coaching training. And then I supported her in coming up with her branding, her website messaging, created this website, had a launch, and started pitching herself to get new clients. So in this case, this person had 30 plus years of corporate experience and decided to make a huge pivot and becoming her own boss and starting her own business as a leadership coach there. And it was not easy. Like there was a lot of even dealing with their own fears and doubts as well, right? Or even working out also the finance piece is important, right? Especially after a certain age, you're looking for also that stability, the financial piece is important, or if you have these obligations that you have to support children and all that. And so you also need to do that risk assessment in terms of really understand the financial piece, whether it makes sense to make this pivot there. Okay, so there's a lot. It is definitely possible. I want to say for those who are either in their late 40s or 50s or 60s looking to make the change, it is possible, but we got to look at also in terms of what fits with your lifestyle and how much risk are you willing to take there. Okay. Okay, what other questions? This is good. This is more conversational. I'm used to having like a presentation, all that, but I like to answer some questions here, make it more conversational as well. So let me see what other questions are coming in. All right, you're welcome. Thank you for the advice and kind of highlight. It was helpful. All right, you're welcome. Okay, what's the next question here? All right, so Adam had a question around I've been applying to some smaller agencies who don't have HR hiring manager listed anywhere. What are some tips for finding out who the hiring manager is? And do you suggest always talking to them before applying for positions? That's a great question. So if you're applying to some smaller companies, they may not list, they may not even have HR, right? So what you're going to have to do is you have to do your best guess here, or you got to start somewhere, right? Sometimes you may not be able to reach the hiring manager right away, which is okay, but you want to use your best guess and thinking like, is this someone in a position where they could maybe be of influence, or they could share some insights, or can maybe, refer me there? That would be a great start there. Right. If you don't know, but this is where part of investigating, right? That you talk to them and they may tell you they're not the right person to contact. They may tell you who the hiring manager is. Sometimes, say, I'm not sure. I just found you on LinkedIn, and they may tell you who the hiring manager to connect you to there. I actually find if it's smaller companies, probably easier to connect with people. Just because they're not necessarily the hiring manager, but it's a great way to network by showcasing your interest of why you're interested in the company, what you find it if you've been paying attention about what they're doing as well, if you can highlight some of that, and just to have an informal chat. Sometimes there may not be opportunities right away, but it's a great way to start the conversation for them to keep you top of mind there. And the question is, do you suggest of always talking to them before applying for positions? I think it depends. It really depends. I do believe, though, is that, the more, the philosophy is if you talk to more humans, talk to more people, you increase your visibility, right? So you are on the radar. Right? And so it does help you make you stand out, right? So if you can find them, that's great. So even I tell, if you apply for a position online, but if you can go through like the back door by, let's say, reaching out to the recruiter or the hiring manager or a friend who works at that company, that always helps, right? It's just that having that extra either endorsement or referral, it just helps you get on the radar for them to talk to you further there. Okay. Like I just recently had a client who told me he's coming from a small agency, actually in the video space, a video production background there, and he wants to work for bigger companies like the Amazon, Salesforce, Google, Shopify, these big other tech companies as well. And one of the things that we talked about that, because he comes from more smaller companies, one of the things that employer will be looking for is in terms of the ability to adapt there. And luckily he has a pretty strong network that he's able to tap into. And recently he told me that, hey, like he's exploring an opportunity at Amazon that's related to a role in video there. And so I think that's great, right? That's at least give you some insights or insider secrets of, what's important to them, what they're looking for to help you better prepare for your application there. Okay. Now, I want to say, here's the thing, right? Reaching out to people at the company doesn't necessarily guarantee you a job, but at least it's one step closer for you to learn, to understand and gain insights of about their experience, about the company, about the role, about the team environment. It gives you a bit more context so that when you actually go through the interview process, it shows that you've already done your research and you're prepared as well. Okay, so that's the benefit of having these type of outreach or networking type of meetings there. Okay. All right, keep the questions coming. This is good. I've seen candidates complete a third round of interviews with 5 admins. Entire interview from first to last total interview lasted 5 hours plus for competency assessments. That's 7 hours of interview for a 450K salary. All right, I can't see the question here because it's too long, so I'm going to probably have to skip that here. For 450K salary, these companies are really working hard. So I guess it's a comment there. Now I'm gonna give my 2 cents of like long interview process, like not just for roles. I have seen some like processes are pretty long, like in terms of, let's say even Amazon, they have some pretty like long back-to-back interview process as well. At the end of the day, like if you really want the opportunity that's important to you, then you want to be prepared for it. Now, there are times where I've seen this with clients as well, like where I had a client interview, I think like almost 8 rounds of interviews for a job at a school. And the last interview was with the CEO or the head of the organization here. And it was like an 8-hour interview. And my client had to really assess whether she really wanted this opportunity. Like, is it worth to go for like a full day, full on interview there? And I think that really says a lot about the company, or maybe their discomfort of making a decision as well. I think most of the time, if you get 3 to 4 interview rounds is more than enough, but anything more than that, it could be a bit overboard, and you want to assess whether this is something you want to continue with or not there. Okay. So the question here is, if after 6 months in an organization, my role has changed, additional responsibilities are given, is it fair to ask for a salary bump? That's a great question. I think that if your role has changed and you're taking on more responsibility and that you are adding value and performing, I think it's definitely fair to have a discussion of a pay increase. I think one thing you want to get clear on, and I've seen this with some clients, is whether it's actually a next level role. Like, if it isn't actually a next level role, they need to really revisit your salary as well, and reassess that. So it's definitely fair to have that discussion. And I think it's pretty common. I think there's a difference between, let's just say that you're taking on more responsibilities because of whatever is happening in the company there. First, if you're taking your role totally change, that's a whole different discussion. Like, meaning, for example, you're doing like even another person's job, or your portfolio change. You took on someone's portfolio because of some layoffs. It's definitely fair to have that conversation in terms of having salary bump. And this is where you want to build a business case. Why? Why should they revisit that, and why should you get a raise there? And so bringing in some of the value add accomplishments and results would be helpful there. Okay. All right. Wow, lots of good questions coming in. Let me see here. Question here is, should you follow up with a hiring manager after an interview, even though they give you a time for next steps? You know what? It doesn't hurt. It never hurts to follow up after an interview, whether it's a thank you, acknowledgement, or if you want to reinforce some of the key messages, it's totally okay. It's, to be honest, from my experience as a recruiter, not enough people do it, I think, and it's a great way to stand out. And I think of it from the perspective is, will it help you stand out or show your sincerity? I think it does, right? You don't want to just have a blanket message, like a standard message there, but if just having something that reminds of what you enjoyed about the meeting, it's always good to have that thank you note. If you don't have their email, send it to either the recruiter, whoever is your point of contact, and they'll forward it off. Like, I know when I was an agency and recruiter, I would have candidates send me a thank you note to the hiring manager, and I would forward it off to the hiring manager on their behalf there. Okay. All right. Question is, if you are an entrepreneur, how can you share this experience in your resume and LinkedIn profile? Great question. So it would be similar. So the way I would look at it is, we look at what were your roles? What were the roles that you had? What were the scope and responsibilities? What were the accomplishments and results, right? So for example, like in my case, like, I've been a career coach now for the last 10 years. If you look at my LinkedIn, I don't just have a title that says founder and CEO of My Markability. Because this is where you got to think about, who are you trying to attract? What's the purpose of your resume and LinkedIn? Is it to attract opportunities? What do they care about, right? So in my case, if I'm trying to help people with their job search, like job seekers, I would want to have that title of career coach and put in the information of what can I do and help them solve their problems and pain points to achieve their goals there. So it would be similar. This is where you got to understand, like, who the purpose of these documents, and who are you writing it for, and what do they care about there. Okay. And then you break it down by different titles that would be helpful to them there. Okay. And I think I'm just guessing here, I'm not sure, Mohammed, but for those that say who is an entrepreneur and want to get a corporate job, and I see this a lot, right? A lot of people have been in their own business and want to get, I guess, a steady 9-to-5 job there, how to update your resume and LinkedIn. Again, this goes back to being clear on your job titles and roles. Sometimes it may not be as clear, and that's normal. So this is where you want to understand, so what am I going after as well? What are those skills, knowledge, and experience I need to highlight to make me more qualified there? Okay. I know it's not easy to do. I recently encountered meeting someone who's been in the construction business for 17 years at a VP level, but doesn't have a clear title per se, does a little bit of everything, and now wants a corporate 9-to-5 job. You really have to break down, like, this is part of strategizing, break down the different type of areas you worked in, and then think about the type of area that you're targeting of how to best position there. And this is where the strategy, branding, and marketing comes in there. Okay. Awesome. All right, keep them coming. All right, so let me see here. I'm going to share another few more job search success stories as well, so for you to inspire you guys and to empower you. And you can feel free to ask me more questions as well. Job search success story number 3 was a client, also a dear friend of mine, who landed a director of HR role, pivoting from the telecommunications industry to insurance, making $70,000 more. I was really proud of this client because this person was in the same industry, same company for over a decade. I think to be exact was almost 17 years at the same company there. So haven't had to look for a job, apply for a job, or go external at all. So when you think about it, there's a lot of fears, right, in terms of unknown. And it also happened during COVID as well, taking this break to look after family. So there's a lot of that uncertainty as well. But one thing that we really worked on is going back to that first stage is, getting clear on what's really important. And one thing was really family, work-life balance, closer to home, kind of commute, really understanding that, and also getting clear in terms of the type of ideal role that was really important there. And then through that, it's about a year process of doing a lot of networking, informational interviews, talking to people that he knew, and eventually landed this opportunity that is much closer to home, making much more. Great culture, great boss, great team members as well. But it was a journey. It didn't happen overnight. It was, a year in the making of preparing for this big pivot there. So it's really important. Like, I want to encourage people to think about when you're looking to especially make big pivots, or if you've been at a company for a long time, doing the same thing for a long time, it's going to feel scary. No doubt, you're going to feel scared of making this change. You're going to question yourself whether you can do it or not. And so you really have to give yourself grace and time to make that transition, and don't be so hard on yourself. And most importantly is to also see value in yourself as well. A lot of times if you haven't had to sell yourself for a long time, you may question, what's great about me, or what have I accomplished? Like, what makes me marketable? And this is where you really have to take the time to do that, or do it with a friend, or do it with a coach, right? Who can really identify, hey, these are things that make you awesome. This is what makes you stand out. Like, this is what really differentiates you. And from there, it's going to help you build confidence and courage to move forward there. Okay. All right. Okay, so I'm going to share with you another story. Is another client who actually moved from Toronto to Calgary here in Canada. She landed a next level manager role in sustainability, pivoting into the tech industry out there. And she had a 91% salary increase, making over $68,000 more. Super proud of her. And again, it was not an easy move. I want to tell you guys these things. Like, even though you see the compliments and very impressive, but it was not easy at all. Like, not easy at all in making this change. She had faced some personal challenges in her life as well, and it was not easy for her to overcome that in order to move forward and finding a job. And I have to say, I'm going to tell you guys this too. I've seen this past year. Like, I feel this past year as a coach, it's not just finding the job, but it's also managing a lot of the emotions, the mental health piece there, right? As a coach, I have seen my clients who've got COVID, their family members who passed away from COVID, or they've been grieving because of a loss, and they had to move forward to find a job. And it's not easy. And this is why it's so, so, so important that we need to pay attention to our feelings, and to be able to find someone who could give you also that support and that strength as well. And this was something that this client also had a loss family that she had to deal with. And it was so hard for me to support her as a coach who had like 3 or 4 interview opportunities to still showcase her best self, right? And this is the balance, is that you want to be able to sell yourself effectively, but you also need to honor your feelings and emotions as well, and to have people who could continuously encourage you to move forward as well. So this is something I was really proud of. It wasn't just landing the job, but just in terms of this person's like mental strength as well in moving forward in her life as well. Okay. All right, so let me see what other questions here. Okay. All right, humanity question here. How far back should you list your job history? I had a position, my resume that was listing a position for 20 years ago. My niece read my resume, said this experience from before I was born. I was afraid to move it. Okay. So going back, so this is a great question, right? To me, a lot of times, um, anything over 20 years may not be as relevant unless it is really relevant to what you're going after. I think that your last 10, 15 years is what employers would pay attention to the most there. So if it's not relevant, you can definitely omit it, I would say. Or unless it's critical, like for some people, let's just say that they work in healthcare and they become a nurse, for example, and that's something important to whatever job they're going, they could list that there. But if it's not relevant, you really don't need to include that there. Or you can just have like a one-liner of past experience, like for that's just like a one-liner of jobs that you did. Otherwise, if it's not relevant, you can remove there. Okay. And then the other thing to keep in mind is whether you have space for that. Like, is this the best use of space of including this information, or is it better to include some other information that will make yourself more marketable there? Okay. Yeah, I've had people like as I'm thinking about this, like if you're in a for those who are in a very senior leadership role or executive role, um, and you've been in working for like plus 20 years, the most important information is more around during the time, let's say the last decade plus of the leadership roles that you've been in. The earlier roles are not as important. You can still have it, but you don't need as much information in there. Okay. Let's see what else coming through. Feel free to type in more questions as well. I wanted to share a few job search habits. I'm going to share some job search habits as well here. I have some habits that I wanted to share, and I'm going to share some strategies as well. So, this is based on my experience, having worked with over like 1,000 clients now, like one-on-one over the years. These are things that I've seen that has worked well, and I want to share that with you. They may seem intuitive, but these are things that I know that has worked for people, and I want to share that with you there. So, job search habit number 1 is to have a growth and positive mindset. So, mindset is huge in terms of your success, right? If you're lacking confidence, or if you are feeling sad and depressed, and that's going to definitely influence or impact the way you're going to show up. And it's normal, right? Like it happens. But I think the big part is to have it's really this winning mindset that you have to first believe in yourself. You need to value yourself. You want to constantly look at ways that how you can improve yourself as well, right? If you've been doing the same method of, let's say, applying for jobs online, it's not getting you anywhere. We're going to start asking, what else can I do? What can I do differently? How can I showcase my marketability differently? How do I showcase my qualifications differently? That's really the growth mindset, right? By either even attending like sessions like this or reading on books and blogs, you want to ask yourself, what are the tweaks that I can make? And then you want to test it out there. Okay. Going back, I use this example a lot, but I had a client who went through a lot of interviews, but not closing. And I remember asking him, like, what's your mindset going into the interview? And his response was, I'm going to go in this interview for them to find out what's wrong with me. That was his mindset or intention going into the meeting of like, what's wrong with me? And so when you go in from that perspective of what's wrong with me, that's what they're going to see what's wrong with you versus what's amazing about you there, right? And so that's the shift that we need to have of like, what's amazing about me? What's great about me? What can I offer to the employer, to the hiring manager? And that's really, it is part of that, having that rewiring of the thoughts that we have about ourselves. Okay. And this is why I love doing affirmations, mantras, visualizations, writing out. You can go, like, you can actually like challenge you to write this is like writing out, let's say 10 positive affirmations of what makes you amazing, right? I am capable. I am smart. I am, but write this out. And I had clients where, they'll put it up on the wall, right? To remind themselves, and they say it out loud every day. And it's to help with boosting that confidence there. Okay. So that's habit number 1 is to have that growth and positive mindset to really to ace your interviews and win. Number 2 is to create a schedule and routine to follow, right? So this is another important habit, especially if you aren't working. You may feel you have a lot of free time, right? And so what I recommend is to create a schedule that will work for you, right? And everyone's going to be different, but what I like to recommend is, to have days that you are, let's say, practicing your interviews, to have days where you are networking, to have days where you are, let's say, updating your resume or your LinkedIn profile. Map those things out. From my experience, when I work with my clients, there's typically a journey, right? A journey that's usually the first phase is discovering what you want, right? Giving yourself time to figure out what you want. So you probably don't want to pack your schedule where you aren't meeting a lot of people. You want to first do some soul searching work to give yourself time and space to slow down and reflect. And then you move into a phase where you are putting together your marketing materials, right? Your resume, your LinkedIn, your cover letter, your elevator pitch. You need to block off time to do that, right? It's really, to me, I would say it's hard to do all of them at once. You literally need to map out a timeline to give yourself, say, 2 weeks to do the resume, 2 weeks to do the LinkedIn, another 2 weeks to do your cover letter and elevator pitch, and map those out timelines and set deadlines, right? Setting these deadlines that you can follow as well. Right. And by having this routine to follow, you're going to feel like you have a purpose, right? Every day of doing something meaningful to move you towards your goals, right? The big goal is, yes, you want to land something, but you want to also look at, okay, what are the little things I can do that will make a big difference at the end there? Okay. So this ties into what I said earlier. Habit number 3 is set those goals and deadlines, right? If you don't set the goals and deadlines, it's not going to happen, right? Even though we can't control when we're going to get the offer, right? But if you can set, let's say it's 5 months from now, I want to land a job at X type of company in this type of role, at least it's going to have you something to work towards, right? And then you're going to work backwards. This is where you work backwards of your plan of, okay, if I want to land a job in 5 months, that means I should be interviewing at least 2 to 3 months before, right? And then from there, I work backwards where, okay, well, I need to have my materials ready to apply for those opportunities. And then before that, I need to figure out what I want to do, right? So you put together that work back schedule to help you hold yourself accountable. And that's a lot what I do as a coach, is also having these check-ins and accountability to help people to move forward there. Okay. And then lastly, which ties into this, is to track and celebrate your progress, right? It can be daunting, right? It could be frustrating and defeating as well. And so it's so important to track your progress along the way. So for example, if you overhauled your resume, your LinkedIn, you aced your elevator pitch, celebrate that, because that's usually a big part of the process of spending time putting together these materials, right? Sometimes I have clients where they do spend a lot of time putting together materials. And once they have that, they feel such a relief and they're so excited to put themselves out there for networking there, right? So make sure you track them and celebrate it. This also helps you understand, like, how am I doing along the way? I'm moving fast enough or not? And a lot of times it's okay, like if you fall off the track, life happens, it's okay, but recognize that and ask yourself, what do I need to do to pick up the momentum? And this is why I do, decide to do a live show like this as well too. Like September is usually like that new season, new year type of feeling, and people want to find jobs as well. You want to pick up that momentum. You want to be excited about it. And that's something that you have something to work towards as well. I even see that those who are in a job, sometimes even harder or takes longer to find a job because they have many other priorities, right? Family priorities, work priorities. And so their own personal priorities may get in the way of getting a job there. But this is where we got to understand, like, why is it so important for you to make this change? What's critical about it? Like in some cases, I have clients where it's no longer bearable for them to stay in a job and they need to find a job ASAP. So then I challenge them that you need to drum up opportunities in the next couple of weeks to start interviewing so that you can interview ASAP there. And in some cases that's the case for some people. So you got to understand, like, if you want to give that sense of urgency, you got to tell yourself, why am I doing this? Why it's so important that I need to find this job ASAP there. Okay. So those are the habits. Now I'm going to move into some strategies I want to share with you there, and I'll answer a few more questions that's be coming in there. So I want to talk about job search success strategy. Reply is conducting research, right? This is also really the preparation that can give you that competitive edge. When you have insights about an industry, about a company, about a role, about a person, It's definitely going to show that you're prepared. It's going to showcase that you know what you're talking about, that you understand the lingo, that you understand the challenges or opportunities, right? You have to do research. And so when I say research, it's not just about reading a few things on the website, right? To learn about the company. It's going a bit further, to dig a little further, to understand, let's say, the products, their customers. If you're going for like a marketing job, you understand like the ads, their pricing, right? If it's in sales, you want to understand the customer journey. You basically want to go through different things to understand further that will give you that competitive edge. Right? The strategy number two is to really create that target list of roles, organizations, industries, and people to network with. Okay, so this is like multiple exercises that you want to do, right? Because you got to first get clear on what type of role you want to go after, right? That's usually the clarity discovery phase, getting clear on that, and getting clear on the type of job titles and levels that you're going after, right? So that you know how to best position yourself. Once you have that, then you can figure out, hey, what kind of industries and organizations you want to go after there. Typically, I recommend no more than 3 industries, because for every industry you're targeting is one search effort. So if you have 3, you got to triple your search effort, just because it's very different and you got to learn about different things as well. And then from there, you want to create a list of organizations that you want to target. It's small companies, medium-sized companies, or big enterprise companies. They're all a little different. So you got to understand what you're going after, put that list together. And once you have that list of people you're going after, companies, then you can easily find these people on LinkedIn or through their website, depending if they show, the people. But LinkedIn is a fantastic tool to go find people, especially for big companies. If you follow the companies, you can find the people who work there and follow them, and to reach out to them as well to network with. Okay, so this is a huge exercise itself. I have found those who take the time to do this exercise, they are more focused, they're more targeted, they're more effective in landing opportunities there. Okay, it's different from just saying like, oh yeah, these are my top 5 companies, and you have it in your head. It's very different. It's very different when you have it on paper versus what you think it is, versus actually you put together a game plan of what you want to go after there. Okay. And then from there, you can track it, right? A lot of times that you may do some research about you like this company, but then you do research, you're like, hey, they're not hiring, or they may have a hiring freeze, or they just have some layoffs. So it may not be the best time to target them at this time there. Okay. All right, job search success strategy number 3 is around talking to people weekly and getting referrals. So from my experience, a lot of times before I start working with clients, a lot of times people rely on purely applying for jobs online. That's just a reality, just because it's easy, right? You look for jobs on job boards, on LinkedIn or on Indeed. And really, it does take effort to talk to more people, because you need to go find them, you need to reach out to them, and you need to initiate the conversation to have that meeting there. But this is really what's going to give you that edge. Going back to what's going to differentiate is going above and beyond. That's really one of my mantras that I've been saying this year, is above and beyond, to give yourself that competitive edge there, right? Is go find people to talk to, right? Recently, one of my other client, I should share this other success story that ties into this. So is that, let me see if I can find this story here. Yeah, one of my client here recently aced his first interview, where he's changing career and industries from investment banking to public sector. And he did tons of informational interviews, talking to people as part of his search. And it really helped him solidify the type of pivot he want to make to go into a more like a chief of staff type of role that he want to go into, from more a business research type of role there. And so just by doing that informational interview, it helped him get more clear on what he wanted. So when it came to applying for this job, like, it was not through a referral, but when it came to applying for his job, the cover letter was more crisp, was more strong. And when it came to the research or went to the interview, he was able to really explain why he wanted this job. And it's a lot of it's because through the different work we've done, but also talking to a lot of people to help him understand what he likes, what he doesn't like there. Okay, so that's another key piece of the strategy, is to talk to people as well, to help you understand what's really important to you there. And then lastly is the job search success strategy number 4 is to master your messages and stories. So at the end of the day, you need to be able to pitch yourself of why you are the ideal candidate and what you bring to the table. And you can't wing it. Like, this is something you can't wing unless you've done a lot of that discovery work, do all this messaging work, and the practice. A big part of it is practice. If you're not feeling comfortable on camera in, talking to someone virtually, it's going to feel awkward. It's going to sound awkward. And so you really need to take the time to master it. And in order to do that, I always tell my clients, to write out your thoughts. It's not just in your head. Write down, what is it that you want to say? What is the flow? What is the structure? I'm a big fan of using the power of 3 rules, like 3 reasons why you should hire me, or my top 3 strengths are this, or 3 things people say about me are. By doing that, it gives more structure and it also helps people take better notes as well. Okay. So you need to first start mapping it out and then practicing it and then recording yourself to see how you can best improve or getting feedback from others there. Okay. So those are the 4 strategies and habits that I just shared. Was this helpful? Let me know. For those who are still here, is this helpful there? Okay, let me just see. Let me answer the question here. Is resume should be 2 pages correct? Should you include a picture? Rick, that's a good question there. So I'm in Canada, North America. Usually I don't recommend a picture. I know in Europe, a lot of the places there, it's okay to have a picture, but generally I don't recommend. It's also to remove any biases there. The debate around 2 pages or not, I know so many people have different takes on it. I'm going to just share my experience as a recruiter. Okay. This is from my experience as a recruiter. Usually I would say the rule of thumb is if you have under the 7 years experience and you can keep it to 1 page, keep it to 1 page, right? Less is more there. A lot of times big consulting firms, investment banking firms, they prefer the 1 page type of resume. But if you're an experienced hire, like meaning you have 10 plus years experience, like solid experience where you have made different progressions in your career there, 2 pages is definitely great. I've rarely had clients that I've helped where we've done more than 2-page resume. I've only had one out of hundreds of people I've worked with at a C level that needed a 3-page resume because he had a lot that he'd accomplished. But generally, most I would say are 2 pages, unless you're in that entry level, new grad level type of position that you're going after there. Okay. I know there's a lot of different debates about this, but that's like my general rule of thumb. And you think about it, right? If I've once had to tell you a story when I was at Google. I once had an executive it was definitely more than 10-page resume. And while he had the relevant experience, the big boss was not willing to move this person forward because they're in sales. And what was really important is that they need to be able to communicate effectively in a concise way. So a 6-page resume was a reflection of how this person communicated in general there. Okay, so that's something we got to keep in mind in terms of your audience of what's important there. Okay. Sean, question, have you ever helped people with autism? No, I haven't. In my one-on-one practice, I have not had help people in that with autism there. Okay, so helpful. That's great to hear. Okay, all right, helpful. Thank you, Julia. Great seeing you as well, Daniela. All right. The question is, Kumas, I found this extremely helpful. Thank you. Let me know if you want me to do more of this because I haven't done a Q&A style. I usually do more guest interviews and training presentations, but I was feeling to do a bit more Q&A style so that I can really answer your questions as well. So why you're the best fit for the job? So I'm guessing that's a question of how to answer why are you the best fit for the job. I should do a talk on interview training. That's another great one there. So to me, I always go back to have 3 key reasons. Okay, 3 key reasons why you are the best fit. And the way I like to think about it is really identify what is your competitive edge. Identify 3 core reasons of what gives you an edge, and then elaborate it of what that means, the definition of it, and then give benefit statements. What does it mean to employer? Meaning, if you have the relevant knowledge, skills, or experience, what does that mean? The so what here is that you can hit the ground running. Okay, you can solve problems faster. You can figure things out faster. So talk about the benefits of that. So don't just say that I have this skill, this experience, but hey, because of these skills and experience that I have, I'm able to help you figure this out faster. So think about the metrics, the KPI of what matters to the employer. Is it that they want to improve efficiency, increase revenue or profits, customers, whatever that is? You want to be able to address that. I can help you do this better because of my knowledge, skills, and experience. Okay. A lot of times people just stop with, well, I'm the best fit because I have the experience or I have the skills. But we're missing the so what message. This is the pitch where you need to pitch yourself. Hey, like, what does this mean to an employer of why you should hire me? Okay. And that takes strategy and planning to do. This is something I love figuring out with my clients of like, what's really going to seal the deal there is, or what's that so what messaging there? And in order to do that, you got to understand, there's a lot of analysis of understanding the company, the role, the people that you talk to. Like, what are those breadcrumbs that they're telling you what they're trying to figure out? Right? Is it you need to save money? Is it that they need to get this out as ASAP? What is it? And that's the thing, that your promise statement of what you're trying to promise them, what you can do for them there. Okay. All right. Yes, we'll love to see more of these sessions. Okay, that's good to know. I would definitely plan more of that there. Okay. All right. So I get nervous trying to connect on LinkedIn. I feel awkward, like I'm asking for a favor. In person, I am great. Okay. So what's that fear there? Maybe you want to dig further here, Huma. Like, why do we feel awkward that way? And you know what? The one thing I like to think about it on LinkedIn is keep it conversational. What I found for me, like even connecting with people on LinkedIn, even throughout this past year, it's better to have a shorter conversational message than trying to write a long message to really impress. Make it conversational, that I learned about you, or I read about you on this and I really admire about this. Like, have some acknowledgement, and then just see how they respond, and then carry that conversation that way. And over time, and this is where, from my experience, it doesn't just happen all of a sudden, like you're best friends with someone because you met them on LinkedIn there, right? I've had so many people, even this past year, like I've met coaches, job seekers as well. I found those who I've really connected with is because also they've actually been like either messaging me here and there, or let's say they've been showing up on my show here and there, or they'll ping me here and there, but they don't ask for, let's say, the big favor. They're not asking like, hey, can I pick your brain? Can I ask you to do this? It's really having this conversation. Over time, these things add up, and you're going to notice, like for me, like I notice for certain people who I want to get to know because of how they are showing up, how they're carrying themselves. And I've had even recently, like, people I've met on LinkedIn where I met them in person and had dinners with them. And it's over time, when I think about it, it's like, they start following my work. They come to my webinars or come to my events. And then it was a guest speaker on my show. And then eventually, like, okay, let's get together this summer there, right? So it's really those nurturing those relationships that you got to start. The first step is usually hardest, right? It seems awkward, right? Because you don't know each other. But once you start nurturing it, it makes it a lot easier there. Right. And, first step could be a simple hello, like my son does, is my older son, Aiden. First day of school, I was like, hi, what's your name? I'm Aiden. And you just start that conversation, right? How old are you? They'll ask, like, how old are you, right? Or where you're from. And it's just some simple question they ask to start a conversation, and they start playing together there. And that's part of it. It's that we don't want to worry too much or worry about like what they're going to think. We just have to appear friendly, right? Appear nice, be respectful as well. And that's it. Okay. All right. So if I'm finding a question here, I'm going to wrap up here. If you don't know the answer to a question in an interview, should you be honest and ask for some time? Absolutely. You can buy yourself some time, Sean. A few techniques is, if you don't know the answer, is either you ask them to repeat the question, or you can rephrase the question, or you can clarify the question. And then, or you can buy some time is that, that you're not sure, you need a little bit more time, and ask if you can move on to the next question there. Okay. Or you can ask them if you're not sure, can they rephrase that? If you really don't have an answer, try to have a guess, but by understanding what they're looking for, you can bring in a relatable example, right? If they're trying to understand how you deal with, say, a conflict, you bring in something that could be similar to highlight that there. Okay. But you can always buy yourself time. It's okay to say you don't know. But if you do can come up with an answer later on, it's always good to be able to answer that there. Okay. Now, sometimes it could cost you, right? I've recently had a client who told me, like, didn't get a job. He was thinking that this big boss, the final interview, that they were looking for someone with that knows like pricing, like the role was about pricing. But prior to that, all these interviews that he had with other people or hiring manager, it was all about UX design, customer journey. So he was going into the mindset thinking he had to take that angle versus pricing there. And so he didn't really, his learning was saying that I didn't pay attention to really to have like take a step back and evaluate what the manager is trying to, like this big boss is trying to look for, and to tweak accordingly. So this isn't going back, that you have to go back to understand what is the role that you're interviewing for, what's really important to them, what's critical to success. And sometimes because of the interviews you've been going through, it could cloud a bit of your judgment as well. And so we got to take a step back and reevaluate, hey, what do I need to tweak here to make myself as an ideal candidate? Okay. All right. So I hope this was helpful. I hope this was helpful. It was meant to be a more casual session today to answer your questions. If you guys like this, I will definitely do more. Feel free to message me and DM me and let me know what you would like to see more. I do plan on doing some still more guest interviews. I actually enjoy doing that. I want to see if I can bring on some recruiters, some hiring managers on the show as well, to showcase or share more insights of what they look for there. So that's something I will be working on. And then the other thing is I will be doing some private webinar trainings as well. So I do plan on doing some job search training in a couple weeks, 2 weeks from now on the 24th. I'm going to do a training where you see a presentation on how to master your job search and differentiate as top talent. So feel free to subscribe to my mailing list on my website at mymarketability.com. If you're not there, feel free to just go onto my website there, subscribe so that you can get the latest updates as well. Okay. And thank you so much for being here today, everyone. I really appreciate it. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend. All right. Thank you, everyone. Great to see you again.